Hello and welcome to Sports and Stuff Podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Haggerty, and I'm going to be talking about sports and stuff. And more specifically, I'm going to be talking about the Giants and football. As for the most good amount of football, we'll talk about some playoffs, but I'll be talking about the Giants as much as possible. Because their season's over. Now it's a recap. It's a recap episode. It's a moratorium. Is that the word? For the 2023 football season, the season that ends in 2024. The Giants' season is over. They went 6-11, beat the Eagles, dropped their draft pick down by one slot, but it was worth it to beat the Eagles and kind of embarrass them and make them second guess the validity of their Super Bowl chances going into the playoffs. So hopefully that causes them to continue to trip over themselves and lose in the first round to the Bucs. So that's the hope as I stand here as a Giants fan this year. And we have my beautiful fiance in the background getting her blanket together. So Giants, like I said, 6-11 after the season before where they went 9-7-1. Disappointment for sure, but there's definitely some things that give you hope that they'll kind of be okay moving forward. Now it probably would have been best, kind of talking in terms of the greater scope of the season before we get into anything else, if the Giants had gone 6-11 last year and Daniel Jones had gotten hurt and didn't play well like he did this year, 2023. If he had done that last year, then the Giants wouldn't have signed him to this massive extension that they signed him to, and probably would have drafted a quarterback. Who would they have drafted? Who's the quarterback even that you think of who's currently playing well? The Panthers drafted their quarterback number one, and he stinks. And a few other of the new quarterbacks. You don't know. But they could have at least gone and started anew with someone else. Who knows if that would have actually been the better case scenario. Some people think it would be. But I'm not one of the fans who would say that. I would think that it was a positive that they went 9-7-1, made the playoffs, won a playoff game, showed, hey, maybe this coach actually can do something with this team, and it's fun. Why wouldn't you want to have a season that's fun, even if it is a season that doesn't end in a Super Bowl? I am wearing my Eli Manning jersey. I know full well how much fun it is to win a Super Bowl, but it doesn't happen every year. Sometimes, I would still prefer every so often to make the playoffs and win a playoff game rather than constantly be a mediocre team that misses the playoffs, or more than a mediocre team, a terrible team that misses the playoffs constantly. And some people would disagree with that. They would say, well, I'd rather be terrible for a couple years and then you get really good draft picks and then you end up being really good. That's not always how it works, though. You go 2-15 now. It used to be 2-14, but you win 2 games in a season. You think, oh, well, we're going to get a really good draft pick. Yeah, but your front office is probably terrible. You're not good at building a team. Having that one good draft pick, getting that quarterback, if you're a bad team, isn't going to be what is going to turn it around. At least that's my thought process. That's my opinion, is that you would prefer to have good seasons because who knows what's going to happen. The Giants, obviously, twice in my lifetime had seasons where they squeaked into the playoffs and then won the Super Bowl. Even if that's not feasible, that's obviously was the best case scenario, and it was a wonderful case scenario. Even if that's not what is usually going to happen, even just having the odd year where, oh, well, we made the playoffs, so that's fun. As a fan, I'm just looking for fun. The worst part about the Giants season ending when it did is just that there's no more games being played anymore. I don't get to watch the Giants play. I don't get to read about them. I get to talk about them, though, as I'm doing right now. But there's so I'd still prefer them to play an extra 2 games like they did last year, even if it means that I guess the next year they're not great. I'd rather them be mediocre every year than be terrible. I suppose it's hard. I understand where people are coming from, saying, "Oh well, it's probably better to be terrible a couple of years and then you'll pop off and be great." It just doesn't seem like that's really how it works. It seems like you need to be building from something, which seems like the Giants are. Now the positive to that point, the positive from this season I would take away is 6-11. Yeah, that's with basically their quarterback being injured the entire season. Daniel Jones being injured the entire season. And even when he played, he's just not that good a quarterback. So they were able to win some games. Sorry about that. But yeah, the Giants seem to have something going for them. And the thing that I think that they do have going for them is that they have the appropriate head coach. They have Brian Daboll, who everything he did this year, even as they were losing, it just seemed to me like he made the right move at every turn. The one that I think of most specifically is he had Tommy Cutlets, Tommy DeVito. He played him. He started him when it was all the craze, the Tommy DeVito craze, and then right when he had an opportunity to remove him from the starting role, he did it. And you could see it as, oh, well, why even start him when you did? Why play him when you did? He was the guy, and it's not like the Giants season was necessarily going anywhere, so you might as well give the fans what they want. He understood the nature of being a likable head coach is definitely important, so he went with that. But then when he had the opportunity, he took him out, and man, that was just a good move. That was a good move, which should kind of goes into the thought that I have, which is Daboll is the guy, and he needs a quarterback. He needs a real deal quarterback who is not just a mediocre, a blah guy who he can make look pretty good, which is what he did with Daniel Jones. He took a quarterback who is not very good, and he made him look good in 2022. He made Daniel Jones look like an actual pretty good quarterback. So what could he do with an actual pretty good quarterback? Could he make him look very good to great? That's the hope. That's what I believe is possible going forward with Daboll. Daniel Jones, he just gets hurt too much. If you're a mediocre quarterback, if you're somewhere in the average to slightly above average some years, to slightly below average some years, that is a reasonable starting quarterback. That there's 32 quarterbacks. If you're the 16th best quarterback in football, you should be starting, and really you should be starting easily. Like there's no question that the 16th best quarterback in football should be starting, and you should be happy with that guy if he stays healthy. If a guy who's kind of, somewhere between slightly below average to slightly above average, depending on the year, and he also gets hurt all the time, that guy cannot be your starting quarterback, or at least you need to do your best to go and find a guy who can be a more consistent starting quarterback. You can be one or the other. You can be a mediocre quarterback. You can be a slightly below average to slightly above average quarterback. Now, again, I have my Eli Manning jersey on. Eli Manning some would consider him to be, during the course of his career, an average quarterback. That's probably not quite true. He's probably was just consistently above average. But even in the times that he was average, for even years at a time, for years straight, for an entire year, what have you, he stayed healthy. So to whatever degree you could knock him for not being one of the absolute best quarterbacks in football, he was constantly playing. Which means, oh yeah, he's gonna be an 8-8 back when it was 16 games, 8-8, 9-7, 10-6 quarterback on a regular basis, but he's going to play. So to Daniel Jones's credit, there's a lot of instances he's a little bit worse than even Eli at his absolute worst. Jones has been consistently, but Jones, let's say Jones is the type of guy who will get you the 2-2 after 4 games. Okay, you have an opportunity, you can move forward, and you can be a pretty solid team going forward. You'll have an opportunity to maybe make the playoffs. If you start off 2-2, you have a pretty solid chance of having a pretty good season. If you're 2-2 and then you get hurt, then you have to bring in your backup quarterback who is going to play, say, 4 or 5 games, and then that guy is at best going to go 500. If he's a backup quarterback, there's a good chance he's not even going to do that well. He'll go 1-3 in those 4 games, and then you are digging yourself a hole because you don't even have your mediocre to slightly above average starting quarterback who can at least get you to that. Now it's 9-8-ish season, which would probably make you the playoffs. And then the other end of the spectrum is you can be an injured quarterback if you're great. If you get hurt all the time, but you start off the season 5-1 and then you get hurt for 4 games, as a franchise, you think, okay, that's pretty doable. That you can work with that. You go 5-1. Your backup quarterback comes in for 4 games, goes that same 1-3, kind of just treads water, at least gets that 1 win, and then your starting quarterback comes back at 6-4, and you have a real shot at doing something. There was 1 year Jones missed like 6 games to end the season, or maybe it was more like 7 or 8 games to end the season, and I have full confidence that he was healthy and could have come back for the last 3 games of the year, but the Giants were like 4-10. At the time, which the math doesn't work out for that 16-game season, which is what it was. But the last few games of the year, there was no reason to bring him back because the Giants' record was so terrible. But if the Giants were 6-5 or whatever the case may be, 7-6. Going into the last few games of the season, you think, oh, well, let's get our starting quarterback in there. Maybe he'll go 2-1 in these last 3 games in that 16-game season, and he'll be able to get us to a position where maybe we will make the playoffs. Daniel Jones is the bad version of both sides of those quarterbacks. He's Ben Roethlisberger at best in terms of getting injured. He actually gets injured more than even some of these injury-prone guys. It's not just because he's running into guys, it's because his body seems... That was why he would get hurt a little longer ago and earlier in his career. He was getting hurt because he just put himself in bad situations. Now it seems like he's getting hurt because his body's just breaking down. Like he just can't hack it because he's just not that good a quarterback. He goes 110% all the time, which is admirable, but it also breaks down your body a lot faster. So you can't have both. You can't have neither. That is, you can't be a guy who can't stay healthy and also isn't that good. You need to pick one at most. The hope is that you are good at both, but not everybody is that, and so he's not good at either. He's not good at staying healthy, and he's really not even that good a quarterback. So it's hard. And bringing it back, Brian Daboll seems like if he had a top-tier quarterback, even the comparison that I saw of Tommy DeVito compared to Tyrod Taylor has an absolute cannon for an arm. Even to the degree where it seems like it's as strong as even some of the top-tier quarterbacks. He has other things that he doesn't do well. His decision-making is not super excellent. He can't thread the needle. His accuracy is like, I mean, he's good. He's the best backup quarterback in football. He probably would have started for a handful of teams that were even in playoff contention, or at least hoped to be in playoff contention. The Jets would have loved to have Tyrod Taylor as opposed to Zach Wilson after Rodgers got hurt, and a few other teams probably with injured quarterbacks would have loved to have a guy like Tyrod Taylor who has skills, who actually has legitimate skill set, as compared to Tommy DeVito, who is probably a legitimate backup quarterback, and I think he even showed that in the last game of the season against the Eagles, and showed that, hey, he can run an offense and do what we mentioned before, go that 1-3 in a 4-game period when your starting quarterback goes down. Solid, middle tier backup quarterback. Tyrod Taylor was the best backup quarterback in football by far, and that's probably exactly what he is. He's the 33rd. He should be the 33rd best quarterback in football. After all the starters, you look at him and you think, whoa, on a good day, he's going to be better than some of those bottom tier starting quarterbacks. And it just kind of showed what Daboll and his offense can do with a legitimate throwing threat, someone who can actually put the ball past the defenses, which DeVito seems incapable of. And there was a point where I thought, well, DeVito might actually be the backup quarterback of the future, so keep playing DeVito, because you have this guy who might actually save you a lot of money. Taylor making $10 million a year as the backup. If you bring in DeVito making less than $1 million or about that, even if you restructure his contract, a whole lot less than what Taylor makes, and playing at some reasonable approximation of what Tyrod Taylor can do, then you're saving a lot of money to the cap, where you can put that money towards something else, et cetera, et cetera. So I thought, well, let's take a look at this guy, DeVito, and see maybe you have a legitimate backup quarterback in him. And that might still be true, and you probably got enough of a look from the games that he played. But once Taylor started playing, I kind of started having more of the thought, well, Taylor is a better quarterback, and you are trying to develop your receivers. You're trying to develop some of these tight ends, even the offensive line. You want to see what you have with all these players on the offense, and the best way to do that is by pairing them with a legitimate talent at quarterback, which is what Tyrod Taylor is. So, once the Giants were officially eliminated, and probably even a little bit before that, but they seem to treat it as, hey, we're officially eliminated, we should actually play Taylor now. But as soon as they were officially eliminated, they kind of they treated it, or at least from my perspective, they seemed to treat the rest of the season as kind of training camp, pre-training camp, preseason before preseason, which is what they should be doing, especially Daboll, whose job security is totally fine. His job is very safe. If he has a really bad season next year, then he would enter the hot seat. He's not even close to the hot seat. They made the playoffs even this year. The quarterback situation was terrible. So he was protected well, and he should be. He's a good coach, and he's a great offensive mind. If they can get some other weapons, then they'll be in good shape. So you might as well put it in the situation where you can start figuring out what you have. And it worked out that the better quarterback is how you figure out what you have, and also it gives you the better chance to win some of these games where they actually did beat the Eagles. And before that, they were playing they played the Eagles 2 weeks prior, and they were going for 2-point conversions all the time, and they were just, it was the Rams who they played, and they actually had an opportunity to beat them. That looked like a game that Daboll was intentionally losing, or at least was doing he said, the only way we're going to win this game is if we convert every fourth down because we're not punting, and if we convert every 2-point conversion because we're not kicking any extra points. With the mindset, these things probably aren't going to happen, which will cause us to lose, which is only a positive for the Giants draft pick going forward. But they're still trying, so how can you look at it as anything but they're trying to win? It was really brilliant. He's a good coach. I think he's got a good feel for how the team should be working. You do things that are kind of heady and pushing the envelope while trying to quote unquote win, but ultimately because you're pushing those envelope type things, there's a good chance you're going to lose. Which it was brilliant. Yeah, I was very happy with the way that he ran the team, especially the last few weeks. I think he was right on the money. So he's safe. Was fun to watch, seeing Daboll run the team even as they were kind of not having a great last few weeks. But ultimately, they went like 4-3 in their last 7 or something like that. What is it? 6-11. They started off 2-8, so they went 4-3. I nailed it. 4-3 in their last 7. That's pretty good. And they went against some good teams in there. The Packers they beat, Eagles they beat. So that's pretty good. And you go forward into the next season, feel I don't know, draft a quarterback. They need to draft a quarterback. They haven't. Everything they've said has made it seem like they're gonna draft a quarterback. There's a few good ones in the draft. You got to draft a quarterback. You can't keep going with Jones. He's signed for this next coming season. You start him to begin the year because he's under contract. When he gets hurt after week 3, then you put in the other guy. And honestly, the best case scenario would be him doing what he's capable of, which is go 9-8 and squeak into the playoffs. Let the other guy work under no pressure and learn the system, and then the next season hit the ground running. And you have, I'm hoping for the LSU guy, the guy who won the Heisman, for them to draft. You get him, he'll be ready by 2025. And like I said, again, best case scenario, Jones has a blah year where they make the playoffs, and you get to have some fun in the year. You release him because his contract will be you'll be able to avoid the contract by then, and then you get to start with a legitimate talent who might actually be able to stay healthy, who might actually be able to be a top-tier quarterback, and someone who Daboll can kind of work with and have worked with under his tutorship from the get-go, as opposed to Jones, who started with a whole mess of bad coaches. So that's the hope. So Daboll gives me hope moving forward. Wink Martindale, the Giants' defensive coordinator, resigned, which I saw several write-ups about the fact that he resigned as Giants' defensive coordinator, which resign and re-sign are such different words, and they are spelled the exact same, and it's very confusing. And I think we need to figure out a way to make it more obvious when one is being used rather than the other, because I saw Wink Martindale resigns, and Wink Martindale re-signs would have been a very valid title to a headline. Now, usually re-signs is re-signs, as opposed to resigns, which is just R-E-S-I-N-S. S-I-G-N-S. Excuse me. So, very confusing. But Wink Martindale resigns. Wink Martindale is, I think, it's fine. It's fine that he resigned. I trust Daboll to find another defensive coordinator. Wink Martindale was a blitzing machine. He loved blitzing the quarterback on the other team, which is a blast to watch. And I really did like him. And he was really perfect for what the Giants were doing, which was squeaking to the playoffs last year and trying to be somewhat relevant this year, even as they were having a bad season. So he was perfect. He made the defense, a lot of talent, a lot of pass rush talent. But I don't think that he's necessarily like a genius. I think he's just he's a nut who blitzes the quarterback all the time, which is fun to watch. But they can get another defensive coordinator. There's a lot of talent there. You just go find a guy who also loves blitzing the quarterback. You have Spagnuolo over with the Chiefs, and the reason I bring it up is it reminds me of the 07, 08 Giants teams with Spagnuolo, where he had all these different blitz packages that he put together, and so I don't know. There's other guys who can tell everybody, hey, go get him. So I'm not that next level worried, though. I did like him, so I'll say I would have preferred him to just stay. It just gives you one extra question mark going into the season, so not optimal. But yeah, draft a quarterback, re-sign Saquon to this franchise tag, and make some other small moves. The receivers I like, even Waller, I think will have a better season next year. I think there's a really good chance that what I think they're gonna do, and what I would really like them to do is draft that quarterback. Start with Jones because this quarterback's gonna be brand new. There's no reason to start him if he's not ready. And you have Jones. He's signed. He's on a contract, and he's a perfect stopgap quarterback. He's not good, but he's not terrible either. So he would be perfect to have him start and get beat up a little bit behind an offensive line that still doesn't seem to be any good. You fired the offensive line coach. You fired a few coaches. The outside linebacker coach got fired, which, all right, if you think that kind of stuff's gonna solidify everything, I think it comes down to you need a starting quarterback who can not get injured all the time. Because you look at it and, yeah, if you had Jones healthy, then you would have beaten the Jets. There was a really good chance you would have beaten the Bills, which obviously still puts them at 8-9 and that's if everything else goes the same, which obviously still isn't any good. It's literally below average. But they at least would have been closer and been a little bit longer into the season, been in it. And even that Rams game, they might have tried to win a little bit more. So, but then if you had a really good quarterback, then there's a few games on top of that. Maybe the Cowboys don't own us quite as heavily if we actually have a good quarterback. Their defense is all over us, but if we had some guy who could actually complete a long pass and do some good things, so it'd be nice to have a top-tier quarterback. Says every team other than like 6 teams. But let's move on from the Giants. Let's talk about the playoffs because that's what I would like to talk about. I could talk a little bit more about the Giants if I wanted to go position by position, but I'd prefer not to. So let's talk about the playoffs, which are starting this coming week as recording of this podcast. I'll be releasing it before this weekend, so I might as well talk about it. We have the Super Wild Card Weekend. Saturday there's 2 games, Sunday there's 3 games, and then Monday Night Football in the playoffs, which is a relatively new development. I think last year was the first year that they did it, which I don't mind it. Especially as compared to having 3 games on that Saturday, which I think they did that the first year that they had the 7th seed. They did 3 games on the Saturday, which that doesn't work. You can't have a 1:00 game on a Saturday. Nobody's going to watch that game. So I don't blame them. There's certain things that they do. It's just for money. For that one, there's a reasonable amount that they can't do. You can't have a 3 a.m. game either. You can't a Saturday 1 p.m. game that is not being watched by anybody. Sunday, you can have a full 3 games. That's normal. 1, 4, and 8. That's what Sundays usually are. Saturday, 4 and 8. That's always been the case as far back as I can remember in terms of the playoffs. The wild card weekend and divisional weekend, the Saturday games were 4 and 8. Sure, people aren't ready to watch football Saturday 1 o'clock unless it's college football is different. But it just doesn't work. So I get it. So Monday Night Football. Problem with it is that the teams playing then have to play on a short week in the friggin' playoffs, which is wild. But it is what it is, and I do get it, and it's kind of fun, and I'm gonna watch. The regular season. I'm a big Giants fan. I watch every single Giants game. I watch the big games when they're on. In terms of the rest of the league, for the playoffs, I generally speaking watch every single game. So we'll see how that goes. Game by game, let's break it down. We'll start with Browns-Texans. The reason I'll start with that one is because this is nice for the NFL. That's the only game that doesn't have any juice at all. Browns-Texans. Hey, man, Browns, you have the quarterback, what's his face, Flacco, is playing for the Browns. I guess Texans has Mayweather? No, not Mayweather. But yeah, it's not that juicy of a game, but it's a playoff game, and it is the first game of the docket, which shows the belief of that game that no one's going to watch that game. 4 o'clock Saturday is historically where they put the worst game. That has always been the case, and that one was the clear choice as to where they would put it. Browns-Texans is a bad matchup. It's a 4-5, and 4-5s are often pretty bad, but a 4 seed versus a 5 seed. But that's pretty good to have only one bad one. So we'll move on from that one. Dolphins-Chiefs, nice. Especially this season with how good the Dolphins were and how many good they have Tua, they have the receiver who used to be on the Chiefs, but the Dolphins Chiefs, that's an awesome first round game. The first round, because of the way things shaped up, and you had some teams who kind of faltered at the beginning of the season, some teams that faltered at the end of the season, so it set up a lot of really cool matchups that, for one thing, wouldn't have happened in the old 6 seed format, because the first 2 teams used to get byes, so which it makes a lot of sense that they stopped doing that, because the top 2 teams in each conference, the teams that everyone knows and everyone cares about and are really good, they're not going to play the first week. It's just going to be these other teams that aren't quite as good. The quarterbacks aren't as well known, and it's a lot of times it's cities that aren't as popular. So it does make a lot of sense, and it makes for a lot better games and a lot better teams involved with the 7 seed format with only one team getting a bye. So you have Dolphins Chiefs, to reiterate. That's a great matchup. That's awesome. That's an awesome first round. 3-6 or 3-6. Whew, that's really good. The NFL is very happy with the matchups in these ones. I guess Browns Texans. I'll just quickly say I think Flacco will have some more good luck moving forward. I'll pick the Browns on that one. Dolphins Chiefs. Man, that's a great first round game. I got to go with the Chiefs, but that's a tough first round, especially as the home team. The Dolphins have to go to Arrowhead now that they lost the division to the Bills, but damn, even for the Chiefs, oh man, our first round is against the team that a lot of people thought was the best team in football 5 weeks ago. So that's a pretty awesome one. Chiefs, I'll take the Chiefs in that one. I think the Chiefs are gonna at least beat the Dolphins. I don't know about going forward after that. I have a good feeling about the Bills. which brings us to the next one, Steelers-Bills. Another great matchup. Bills, being what they are this year, is great for football. I mean, if they had missed the playoffs, that would have been a friggin' shame. But the Bills were able to reel off some wins and win the division. I thought they were going to win the wild card, which I actually thought that would have been awesome for football if the Bills were like a 7 seed and they were going against some 2 that thought, oh man, we're going against the friggin' Bills. But now the Bills are the 2, which is awesome. So you get to see some games in Buffalo, hopefully, which the 2 seed that's a good seed. You guaranteed 2 playoff games at home, which is awesome, especially in Buffalo. I'm rooting for Buffalo. I'm a New Yorker, through and through. I'm a true New Yorker, through and through. So I got to go with the Bills. Buffalo baby. Went to school in Albany. I had plenty of friends who were either Bills fans or kind of like, yeah, well, my whole family's Bills fans, so I'm kind of a Bills fan. So got to go with the Bills there. I used to like the Steelers before they had Roethlisberger, and now they don't have Roethlisberger anymore, so I do like the Steelers, but I'm rooting for the Bills, and I also think the Bills are going to win. The Bills are awesome. And I hope they win. They're a lot of fun to watch. I am rooting for them ultimately, and also as a football fan, that's a cool. Josh Allen is the man. They have a good fan base. It would be cool to see them make a little run. Which I think that's all in a row. The AFC is all on. It's the 2 games on Saturday and the first game on Sunday. It's all the AFC teams in a row, which is kind of surprising that they would schedule like that. But next up is, I'm going to talk about anyways, Eagles-Bucks. I'm not sure if that's very next up, is Eagles-Bucks, which is another good first round situation. The Eagles not getting the 1 seed makes for a great wild card weekend again that the NFL is probably very happy about. That a few of kind of the most popular teams and like the villain teams and even some of the superhero teams are playing in wild card weekend, which isn't always the case. You know, you could have had Eagles and Chiefs get the 1 seed, and then you would have been without the Eagles and Chiefs in this first round, which would have taken away some of the juice. You know, there still would have been some great teams involved, but now the Eagles and Chiefs are both involved in the first round of the playoffs. That's pretty sick. And the NFL is probably very, very happy that that's the case. And then they're all going to, the Niners and the Ravens are waiting for everybody. It's like, oh yeah, Niners are awesome. The Ravens have Lamar Jackson. So it's like, it's still great teams that they're going to face whoever ends up facing them. But it's not necessarily the juiciest teams, but they're just awesome. It's a very good lineup of NFL playoffs. You had, the Dolphins were establishing themselves as one of the best teams, and then they fall into a wild card spot. So now this team that you think of as, oh, they're a great team, they have a lot of really great players, and they can really smoke you. Now they're a wild card team going on the road against the Super Bowl champion from last year. It's a lot of really good storylines. Pretty cool. Eagles-Bucks. I mean, I'm rooting for the Bucks because I hate the Eagles. So I'll root for the Bucks, and because of that, hey, the Bucks are playing at home, and the Eagles have been terrible. A big part of me thinks that the Eagles are going to figure it out and at least beat the Bucks. I think that they're going to lose to whoever they go against next, which will most likely be the 49ers, which that would, again, what the NFL wants. They want a 49ers-Eagles second round. But I don't know. We'll see, because the Eagles have looked bad. The Eagles have looked really bad. They haven't just lost a few games and then fallen out of the division. They lost a lot of games and fell out of the division. And also, they looked horrible. They lost to the Cardinals. They almost lost to the Giants once, and then did lose to the Giants another time. They have lost to bad teams. They beat a bunch of good teams earlier in the season, but barely. I wouldn't be shocked if they looked horrible again, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they just turned it on and at least beat the Bucs, because the Bucs, who cares about the Bucs? They don't have Tom Brady. I mean, but it's in Tampa. Who knows? I'll pick the Bucs because I hate the Eagles. And then you have Cowboys Packers, a classic matchup. Cowboys Packers. That's a classic. The NFL loves that too. 2 versus 7, Cowboys Packers. Beautiful. It's like it's you know what they're gonna do on the TV. All the promotion's gonna be the Cowboys of old and the Packers. Blah blah. There's gonna be a lot of waxing poetic about the old school Cowboys and the old school Packers, which is going to be kind of vomit-inducing. Some of the other games are a little bit juicier. That one, and I do hate the Eagles. I could definitely see the Eagles winning. I could definitely see the Eagles winning. Cowboys-Packers in Dallas, I would be shocked if the Packers won that game. The Cowboys are really good at home. The Packers are just kind of funky. They're the 7th seed of 7 seeds this year at the very least. I think they're gonna build up and they're gonna figure some stuff out going forward. I think Love is legit. He'll have some really good seasons in the future, and they'll be happy. They'll have their 3rd straight quarterback, which is the hope from all these Packers fans. But man, again, I would be shocked if the Packers won that game. So that's, so far that might be the game that feels the most lopsided is Cowboys-Packers. Because Steelers-Bills, the Bills are just such a wonky team that could hurt themselves that I could see that one, it could happen. That one, again, that's another 2 versus 7. 2 seed versus 7 seed. The 7 seed has never won in the short history of the 7 seed, but the 7 seed has never won, and I don't think that's going to change. I think that the Bills will win, the Cowboys will win. Then moving on, we have Lions-Rams, which is going to be dubbed as the Matthew Stafford going back to Detroit game. Matthew Stafford with the Rams. He won the Super Bowl with the Rams like 3 years ago. So there's actually some juice to that in general. Even the Rams are a cool, they're the 6th seed. They're a cool 6th seed because they did win the Super Bowl recently. So they're kind of this veteran team that has its last shot at, they made a comeback and they're back in the playoffs. So that's, especially as a wild card. That's a cool comeback story. And the Lions are kind of the up and coming great team. You have all these great teams. You have the 49ers and the Ravens. The Dolphins are another up and coming great team. And it seemed like they were going to actually be in a similar situation to the Lions, which is, and maybe even a step above in terms of up-and-coming great teams. But the Lions are right now that, I guess going into these playoffs, because they do have the home game, are that up-and-coming excellent team, potentially at least, where going forward, they might get some first-round buys, and they might get some 2 seeds, and they might make some runs. This year, the Lions need to beat the Rams, or else you're going to look at them and say, ooh, are they the type of team that can't win a playoff game? Like, they're great in the regular season, but they can't win a playoff game. It'll at least begin to enter the thoughts of the NFL faithful. But the Lions kind of need to win this game, and then they're the 3 seed. And then most likely, if everybody wins their games, then the Lions would play the Cowboys in that next round. If all the home teams win their games, the Lions would play the Cowboys, and that'd be a tough game. The Lions would need to play that tough. So for this season, the Lions kind of need to beat the Rams, and they kind of need to play the Cowboys really, really tough. And you'd like to win that game. The Cowboys aren't that good. They are great at home, so that's the tough part. But the Lions, they need to win a playoff game as it is, as everything's shaped up. And then playing the Cowboys in the next round. The Cowboys are really good at home, so if they lose that game, but they play really tough, that's that's a great season. That means that, oh yeah, the Lions are still the up-and-coming great team. You have a lot of faith in them. The hope is that next year maybe they can be a 2 seed so that they have that extra home game, and then you never know. Then at that point, you win your first 2 games, you go into the conference championship. Hopefully the 1 seed gets clipped, and then you're the 1 seed all of a sudden. But for this year, win a playoff game, Lions, and play the divisional round tough at least, and then you're kind of still in that trajectory that everyone feels like, which is, the Lions are going to be really good for a while, which is kind of what everyone feels. And then what I hope for, what I'm rooting for, and I'll talk more about the playoffs next week when everything falls into place and all the games happen. But I'd like for the 49ers and Bills to play. And at that point, I got to root for the Bills. Again, New York, baby. It's a hell of a town. But that's not where that is. It's Buffalo, New York. It's not New York. So I'm rooting for the Bills all the way. I want a Bills 49ers Super Bowl. As long as the Eagles and Cowboys lose, I'm happy. But otherwise, that's going to be it for the podcast. Did some talking, did some sports and stuff, and that'll be that. So I'll see you next time.